Hello, everybody. I am excited to chat with you today about community and about growth and where we can actually learn things that are helpful for practical application when it comes to emotional health and spiritual growth. Living well as a Christian, where we can actually experience beautiful life with Christ even when circumstances are really challenging. Whoops, that was not supposed to be up there. Oopsie, I have not announced that yet, so we're just going to pretend that didn't happen, or not. But we'll put the regular logo back up there. I've been doing a lot of work recently on video and audio setups and trying to make sure that I have good quality to bring to you. And as usual, it just seems for me, so for some reason, there have been so many challenges with things working the way they really should work. At least I think that they should. And even though I do a lot of research to figure things out, some things just don't make sense. Well, you got to keep plugging away. And it's one of the reasons, the fact that I can research and am able to do that is one of the reasons I want to offer a new community and have just started that with a new YouTube channel called, okay, I have to think through this one because I have actually changed the name several times because of what was available, what was already out there, and using some of these terms. And the name is Creator Life Collective. That's going to be, it has a YouTube channel. So I've done a couple live streams there on AI tools and about the whole concept of using AI as a Christian who creates online content, and then just like a welcome video about the channel that I'm creating, and planning to create a community for that. So I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Today, the focus of this live meetup is on growth and finding growth in community, in relationship with other people. So I'm going to be doing lives. I think I have 2 planned through October, November each month, and then 1 planned in December. And I believe they're all on Tuesdays at 1:30 Eastern Time. Would love to have you join me for the discussions. I don't know yet what topic I'll pick for the upcoming ones, but you are welcome to suggest something, and we can talk about that in a live session. You can ask questions, and you can contribute to the conversation. You can offer thoughts that I might share and put onto screen. So I see Shay is with us from Instagram. Hello, Shay. Good to see you. And I want to talk today about kind of this idea of being a Christian that I think keeps most of us from experiencing what is a blessing as part of being a Christian. I know it's kind of vague and doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I was having this conversation with another friend of mine this morning. We were talking about a t-shirt that had a different saying on it and kind of different things that were coming across as the message. And the way that I read that message was I was noticing this, the way that certain words were combined and the way it was proposed may be really helpful for some people. Just like in my series, Christian Phrases That Keep Us Stuck, Hidden, and Hurting, some of the phrases that I talk about or verses are really helpful for some people. And so I try to share reasons or why that may be the case for some. Yet, there are subtle nuances or unspoken nuances that I don't believe many people are talking about in how that message is interpreted that actually shapes how we see God, how we see our relationship with God, how we see our life here on earth, and our role on earth. Some of these messages, kind of like the shirt that I was seeing, convey a principle that kind of goes along with a mindset and a belief set that our job is to eradicate sin, obey everything that God says so that we can get it right. That's not what we're going to say, but in our kind of the interpretation inside of us, the concepts of obedience, the concepts of turning away from sin and not wanting to sin, those types of things have become something that is actually one more thing that we're trying to do or not do. And the more we can do or not do it correctly, the better we are. Now somehow we're made presentable before God. And at the same time, a lot of those messages that, or those memes or whatever it is that we see that convey that message to our hearts. I'm not talking necessarily always about the words that are coming out, but the message is conveyed right here in the heart. Those messages are just, they subtly infiltrate, and these people may, or these messages, like the source of them, we may also see a contrary perspective that says we don't have to perform for Christ. We are fully accepted. We are loved, that God has grace for us. Yet still, the other messages about not being worthy of God's love, not being, what's some of the terms that some people use? Like just this horrible person, basically, this worm on the ground, all these different terms that are used to describe us as super low. Then we kind of can connect that to terms, which is what I saw in this particular situation, like, well, because even though I'm not worthy, I am forgiven. Well, we're not forgiven based on our worth of what we do. So in that sense, somebody may be feeling like it's helpful to say worthy. I'm not worthy of God's love, but he gives it to me anyway. But the reality is the discussion I had this morning is we're worthy because God created us. Worthy because God has chosen to make us, redeem us, love us, accept us, and give us provision like courage, hope, and the different things that we need physically, spiritually, relationally, etc. Anyway, sorry, that was a total bunny trail. That is really probably better for one of my specific videos on phrases and how they get interpreted and how it's actually keeping us stuck, hidden, and hurting. The goal of that is to identify what are areas inside of us that we may have a really difficult time identifying that they're there, because our mind wants to cling to the things that we should do, that we have to do, the get it right mentality. And the very nature of doing that is keeping us from experiencing life with Christ, from receiving the good that God has for us. So when it comes to growth and growth in community, one of the things that I noticed in my own journey of healing, when I was going through healing from trauma, PTSD, depression, anxiety, all kinds of things, I started attending Celebrate Recovery at our church. There's also, I believe, life recovery groups, and there's other programs that are similar. And of course, there's the AA programs, NA. And what I had noticed, and I'd heard from many other people as well, because they were saying the same things that I was thinking, is that one, people think that the recovery programs are just for people who are in like dire straits, somebody who is an alcoholic or addicted to something, a porn addict, something like that. Yes, those are helpful in those cases. And in Celebrate Recovery, there's literally a group for habits, hang-ups, something like that. And what we were noticing, me and other people that were having these conversations, was that we felt kind of sad. We felt glad to be there, but we also felt sad that not more people were people that we could connect with in church, in a place of saying, I am struggling with certain patterns in my life, ways that I'm reacting, unhealed wounds, I'm not even sure how to navigate different situations in my life, and I don't know what to do with it, and I want help so that I can grow and develop more of who I am. That's not what they were saying, but there was, it's this place in Celebrate Recovery where you're noticing people are acknowledging they don't have it all figured out, that things are messy, that it is challenging at times, and meeting together to work on themselves. And the encouragement is really about what's going on in your own life. Now, there's definite benefits for Celebrate Recovery, and especially for like just what I mentioned, even that having a place where you have people in general who are ready to grow and to heal and to try new things in life because they want something different. They don't want to be reacting in anger to their child or their spouse or their friends. They don't want to be hiding in fear and not using their gifts or struggling to check out in the day and not be able to do the things that they need to do. And so maybe procrastination is even another area where they may be struggling. And in Celebrate Recovery, you've got people that are acknowledging something in their lives that they want to work on. And this is in general. I know that every group and locations are different, etc. But it's not easy to find that in community. And then you have community groups, small groups, life groups. And we were in a few different community groups. In the last one that we were in, there was some really good things that were happening and some support, etc. And we stuck it out for years with some of the same people even for quite a long time. And there were some things that were really hurtful and damaging, and things that were said or the way things were handled that were actually damaging. And so that's kind of sad. But what I noticed overall in community groups in general, and I also hear from other people, is that, and so if you have a different experience, please do share it, because I don't know everything. I do not know what all the groups are like out there, and I would love to hear your experiences as well. But I believe that there are many circumstances where we're gathering with other believers, whether it's in a community group, small group, life group, or something else. It's a gathering of Christian believers, and the topics are either kind of surface level. Everybody's talking about concepts and ideas, information. What should we do? Oh yes, this is what God means here. This is how this is interpreted. This is the information we should grasp and understand. And this also kind of goes with like when there's topics of politics or whatever, it still is in the head area. It is focused on ideas and information without transformation. And sometimes that shows up in what I felt were really distancing ways. Initially I was thinking shallow, but really there is also this distancing that we have from what's going on inside of us. And so prayer time. What do we ask for in prayer? Somebody needs a new job. They're going through a hard time. Somebody's feeling sick. Somebody's relative, their uncle is sick with cancer. They're whatever it is. Like there's something that's an information, factual thing that's happening that they'd like prayer for. And often what I notice is that the prayer request is focused on fixing the problem, which isn't a bad thing. Like we want to pray for healing, right? We want to pray for, God's favor and blessing when we're looking for new jobs and all those things. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm saying when it's only that content, absent a personal experience, we're missing out. We're missing out. So when I recall one time, somebody saying, pray for, I'm not even going to say it. It was a very, very, very minor thing. And literally just, I didn't understand it at all. But there's been other times when someone has had a significant event in their life and they ask for prayer. And so I want to stand with them in prayer. Yes, let's pray for healing. Let's pray for restoration. Let's pray for, whatever we believe, God would want in that situation to bring it into wholeness. And at the same time, I want to hear and I want to know, how is it impacting you? If your uncle has cancer, what is that like for you? Were you close to him? Are you close to him now? Have you lost other people? Tell me more. Help me understand what's going on for you. How are you impacted by this event in your life? If you are in between jobs, you've lost a job, you've been laid off, how is it impacting you? Get curious. Connect to the heart. What is actually happening? And then when we show up with presence, God's loving presence, kindness and compassion with another person, and they're able to share that vulnerable reality of what's going on inside of them, the impact inside their souls, transformation happens. One, maybe their fear reduces because they feel less alone. they feel heard, they feel validated, that their reality is challenging and they're not alone in it. Sometimes someone may say something when they're in touch with the reality of what's going on inside of them that they really struggle with thoughts that they're not happy that they have. Thoughts about somebody that are ugly, that are messy, or doubts and confusions. Or they have a specific area of sin, a specific area of struggle in their life that they're not able to stop. They're really wrestling with the fact that it's still part of their life and how it's like affecting their ability to do their job or to connect well with other people, or it's affecting something. And they're burdened by that. They're carrying this heavy, heavy load. And it brings up a lot of shame. But when they can bring that to somebody who's present, who is listening, who is available to make space for the messiness with that person, they get to experience something new. That their brain is telling them, if I share the truth of how I'm failing or I'm wrong or I'm feeling bad about who I am, I feel like I am bad. If I share that truth with other people, like there's part of our body that just is terrified and says, no, nobody can know that. Nope, you just got to do better. You're going to say, you put your hope in the Lord, you put your trust in the Lord, and you're going to pray more, and you're going to claim the victory in Christ, and you're going to do all these things. Do the things. It's not bringing the transformation here, and we miss out. But when they bring that shame, when they bring that vulnerability into community, and somebody is able to take it in, just listen. You do not have to agree to be present with somebody. Their brain and body experiences different shifts. Instead of the fear that you're going to abandon me, reject me, I'm going to be more alone, instead of the underlying signals in the brain that are saying it's not safe to expose that I will feel even more bad if somebody actually sees the bad inside of me, they have an experience of being accepted. Not somebody telling you God accepts you as you are. Not somebody telling you what you have to believe about being accepted by God. But another layer of experience that shifts what happens inside the body and the brain and the soul so that we can operate from a different level in the future. Sometimes we need lots and lots of those experiences. Sometimes we have a big circumstance in our life that starts taking us off kilter, and that the badness starts to surface again, the old messages that come up that try to keep us shut down or angry and attacking to other people. We can have a transformative experience in community with other people, in relationship. So I see this need for a couple of different things. One, that we as believers need to learn how to be present, safe, vulnerable people, how to make space for another person who's messy and in process. And then how do we actually connect to what's going on inside of us? How do we communicate it? How do we share it? How do we ask for those needs to get met in healthy ways? Those are all aspects of spiritual growth, personal development that are part of what I mean when I talk about things like soul stewardship and self-stewardship. The focus is not getting the right information to make the right step or choice, and then we feel bad because it's difficult to follow through because we don't actually have the support structure or the framework or the energy and capacity to do the follow through. But when we're learning some of these things with other people, that starts to build. We start to have a structure inside of us that feels more grounded in Christ and grounded in who we are as God sees us. From that place, we also have more courage. We have more capacity. We have more energy to give to other people. To even know, what is it that we have to give? Am I depleted of all my resources? Now I need to connect to somebody else again, or I need to find the ways that God has designed me to receive more energy inside of me. Like, for example, you have the introverts and the extroverts, and we all need social connection, but there are also ways that we receive, get re-energized right? There's times when I just need to be alone and doing a puzzle or a coloring book or something like that, and it re-energizes me. I can be super exhausted, and a few hours later, I feel like, oh, I have energy again. And then there's other ways that we feel completely depleted because we are living isolated in our spirits. You can be surrounded by other people, but if you're isolated in your spirit, it's really painful. It's confusing. It's like, there's a word that's in my mind, but I can't think of what it is. It's like you're trying to figure out which direction everything is or what's the solid ground to stand on. Disorienting. And there's a concept that Dr. John Townsend uses, and I think I talked about this in the last live too. I don't remember because I'm doing a lot of video content right now in different places. And one of those is Cultivate Together, your growth community. So if you have not heard of that, I'm just going to put it on the screen real quick so that you guys know that that is an option. Let me move it actually up above here, above me. I probably could make that smaller. But there's a concept that Dr. John Townsend uses called relational nutrients. And you can look up relationalnutrients.com. What I love about that, about relational nutrients, and sorry, on Instagram, I know it's going to be really small, but it's this concept that he talks about in his book, People Fuel, that there are certain things we can only get in relationship with other people. And when we operate from a place of, I just have to get it right, I need to figure out maybe I just need to pray more, I need to ask for like the specific kind of healing or different things that we're trying to figure out and manage for ourselves, and we're doing it on our own. Or when we are pouring out constantly to other people and not taking in, not allowing other people to pour into us in the sense that they are offering words of encouragement, or they see something in us and they're calling it out. They're calling out what's good. They want to celebrate with us, and we find it difficult when they say, oh man, you're really good at XYZ, some kind of gift that they see in you. We push back, further isolating ourselves, further disconnecting to what our hearts actually need. And this concept of relational nutrients is that the way that we get that filled in is taking in those good things that come from other people. The presence that I talked about earlier. Somebody's ability to listen, to just be with you, to maybe not even say anything, to validate that what you're saying about how crummy a situation is, yeah, that's really crummy. Or that would be difficult. I'd feel confused too. I can understand why you'd be so angry right now. That validates the experience that they're having so that they can move into a place where they can make decisions based on their values. And that's between them and God. And there are several different things that happen in relational nutrients. One of the things that is interesting in that there's 4 quadrants in this document that he has. And the first part is the present, and he talks about validation and containment and some different principles that are part of presence, how we build the presence with other people. And I love it. It's beautiful. It's connecting. It's that heart-to-heart connection. And that is something that so many of us are longing for and struggling to find. Then, even when we find it, we're struggling to receive it. What we end up doing is moving from that first quadrant, presence, down to the last quadrant, 4, which is the call to action. And in that place is when we're telling somebody else what we think they need to do. Well, you just need to blah, 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 pray more. You need to do this. That call to action isn't even actually focused on the other person. There hasn't been an investment of connecting to who they are, to what they need. There isn't a built-up connection over time in that relationship. It's focused on trying to get them to do what you want them to do or what you think that they should do. Okay, so let me pause for just a second. Jay, I'm gonna share your comments online. If that is not okay with you, please let me know right away. But I want to do this as kind of a regular thing. It's 7 years old now. Daughter, actually, it's hard for me to read it here. ADHD. Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? This is not. I'm going to take that down because it looks like that is actually a spam comment. So sorry about that. I'm going to have to pre-read it because there are certain things. Maybe it's not. I apologize if that is not a spam comment, but just the tip that I got from that is the words of "I got this. Help. Somebody helps me with all these problems that I was having." From a certain person on Instagram or Facebook or somewhere else. It's always directing you to something. And I get a lot of that stuff, especially when you talk about things like narcissism or emotional abuse. As soon as that's kind of put to the forefront, then all of a sudden, you get all these spam comments. So just a heads up in case you see that, you don't need to follow those Instagram links or those Facebook links because it's not real. It's not really a person that's talking about it. If they are, they would come back. They would give me something more personal and informative. So let me go back to my conversation. If you're still with me. So we're talking about relational nutrients and how we get things from other people. There's kind of this idea that we have to be just us and God at times. And there are times when it really is us and God in praying, when we're crying out to the Lord, when we're pleading with God, when we're praising Him, and sometimes in seasons, or you might have a getaway and you're spending time with just you and God. The outcome of that season or what you're doing, etc., is a closer connection to God and hopefully an increase in ability to do what you need to do to receive from other people as well. It's not a life way, it's not a way of living, it's not a life pattern, just me and God. What I see happening sometimes is some people will say, oh, they start noticing so many people disagree with their opinion on something, or they can't find a healthy community to connect with. And so the default is to kind of feel defeated, which makes sense. I mean, I totally get it. It is really difficult when you can't find a good and healthy community and you can't find the connections that you're looking for. But if you default into, well, I guess it's just me and God, that's kind of making a decision that there isn't going to be another opportunity, or that there aren't opportunities out there that you haven't found, or other ways that God will still bring other people that can be part of this. It just may look different than you think. And moving into just me and God is kind of going back to that I'm in charge of making sure I get it right, and it's also can become from a place where you just, I just figured out how to make that smaller. Yay. Learning new things on the fly. All right, there we go. That's better. Anytime we use a verse or a spiritual concept in a way, and the outcome is that we are left trying to figure one more thing out, trying to get one more thing right, or more exhausted and isolated, it's worth considering what is the meaning tied to that verse or phrase. Is there a way that I am actually blocking something I just don't understand yet, or a way that God might want to provide that I don't see at this time? And then faith comes in. I'm doing the best I can today, and I want to see what you might have for me. Help me make sure that I am available and that I can receive and notice when you do show something for me. So for example, like you're struggling through a really difficult season and you're trying to find an answer to a job situation, for example, and you're not getting it and you get frustrated. Okay, well, never mind. I guess it's just me and God. And then you never talk to anybody else anymore about it. And so then nobody knows that you're actually looking for that job. They don't know that you have that challenge. And somebody might actually have an opportunity to network you or connect you with a new job or a different manager, maybe even a different career, who knows. But God might use that person to bring about something great in your life or a new path for you. But when we pull back, we miss out on it. Likewise, with relational nutrients, when we pull back, we miss out on getting the courage, the comfort, even sometimes that conviction. When we're able to receive from other people their perspective and get some feedback, it helps us understand that There are maybe areas of our life that we're not completely aware of that are causing issues, that are problematic in some way, that may be keeping us limited, because maybe somebody notices that our language is constantly talking about how we can't do anything, and that defeat is in there. And so if somebody's listening, they might, say, hey, I want to understand more about, how this is challenging for you. And I also wonder what is possible, trying to draw out what is good and bring that in. And that happens in relationship with other people. They can see that, they can offer that feedback in such a way that that person now has hopefully some encouragement, some new insight that takes them to the next level, kind of moves them forward in some way. So let's talk about specific ways or places where you can find community. I know there's actually, I have heard about a buddy app, so I don't know anything about it. So maybe if anybody else does know, then you could share something in the comment section for me about how you can, just finding friends in the area. And I know of more than one people that have used this app, and they found someone that they were able to start hanging out with. We are in a new state. We moved across the nation last year, and thankfully, pretty amazingly, there are people all around us that we had known previously at somewhere in our life, in our journeys, in different areas. So within 20 to 40 minutes in all kinds of different directions. And then we've met several new amazing people. And at the same time, I'm still looking for more connection in Christian communities in the area. So I went to a Facebook group for the area, and I just posted, it was a Christian one, but a lot of the posts were kind of like hokey stuff, and I wasn't sure, am I going to be able to find anybody in here that can help me find a community group or small group that I can connect to. I don't want to be in just a big church. I don't want to just be at church for the sake of being at church. I want to be part of a community where we're actually growing together. So I just put it out there and just said a little bit about us, not overexposing myself, not trying to give too much information, but to say, hey, hey, we're in the area, we're looking for some community groups. And I did find out about a church that I hadn't seen in my research that is in the area that has a lot of small groups. So it's worth checking out. That's a way of being active in our lives to pursue things that are meaningful, valuable, and important, and part of the way that God wired us. Love one another, comfort one another, find the one another's. I know full well going in, it's going to be imperfect, that building relationships can be messy, and it may be difficult to find community that to me feels safe enough or enough for me to be able to kind of have that deeper connection. I struggle sometimes because I know that it's hard for other people to go to that heart level sometimes, and I'm hoping I find more of that. So that's one way. But then there's also other groups. There's somebody posted about square dancing. I was like, hey, I don't know, square dancing sounds fun. That's probably good exercise. I did square dancing in St. Paul few years ago, back in 2019. I visited my sister in the St. Paul area. I don't know if you know Sarah Groves. She's a musician. And she has this church that they bought, and it's called the Art House North, I think. And they do a lot of community events. So they have an annual square dance in the streets. I believe it's actually in St. Paul. And the community gets together and does square dancing, and there's a hoedown band that's playing. It's not Sarah, it's this other group of guys. It was so fun. So it's good exercise. Maybe I can meet other people there. You start having the conversations. You start engaging with other people in limited amounts. You don't want to be just gushing out in front of other people, but those steps can also help you identify what type of relationships you could have. One of the things that Dr. Townsend talks about in People Fuel is building what he calls a life team. And that is a group of different people who provide different nutrients, basically. So he was talking about having a life team. Some people are able to provide more of the validation and the containment. They're closer to the really deeply personal stuff, and that's usually a smaller group anyway. And then there's other people who provide coaching, and you're giving them permission to speak into your life about specific things, and maybe it's more personal or professional, etc. All those things together build up a social support system. It's probably a counselor type of term, right? Social support system that helps you develop who you are, helps you grow, helps you have a place to go when you have different types of needs, because not one person can fit all those different needs. And sometimes you're going through a really, really difficult season and you're feeling so much sadness, so much anxiety, so much fear, overwhelm, whatever it is, that you start sharing with one of the people in your closer network, and then you might need a couple other people to kind of help carry the load of how much you need to share because there's so much going on inside of you. Or one person is better at certain ways of providing the comfort, somebody else is better at that. I'd love to hear your ideas on how you find supportive growth communities and what your experience has been with small groups, community groups, life groups. If you have something like that in your area, yay, I am super happy for you. If you don't, could you start one? You don't have to have things figured out to start. That was the other thing I put in my post. If I can't find something, we're also open to starting something at our place. And is there any interest? So far, it's been mostly sharing about a couple of the churches, which is not surprising to me in the particular type of Facebook group that I was posting this in. But it's a way to start. It's a way to start exploring. And when we're moving in a direction to take care of some of those needs, to notice that there's something missing in our lives that we need a little bit more of, we're moving in that direction. I believe that God brings more clarity, and we can keep listening to the Holy Spirit and adjust things as necessary, but we don't know what that is until we're taking the steps and moving forward. So there are different options. There are the recovery groups. There are small groups and community groups. There are local community activities. There's the apps that I've heard of. I'm not recommending it. Because I've just heard people that have actually developed some good relationships and friendships through a friend app. And I am offering Cultivate Together, which is posted up here above. There. This growth community has been going on for a little over a year. It's small right now. I am continuing to develop it and improve what is happening in the community and what I offer for the community so that it's helpful, it's not overwhelming, it's also a place where you can have these transformative experiences with other people, where you can test and try new ways of living and being. You start learning about boundaries, and you want to start communicating a boundary to another person, it's really helpful to try that out with somebody else and test the words, test the way of doing it, and see how it lands. Then maybe you can adjust, and maybe you have a different way of doing it when you're actually needing to use that communication. You're noticing that you have denied that you even have needs for most of your life. So what are we going to do? The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to celebrate that you have an awareness that has been an issue for you, that it's been difficult, that's been a struggle to have needs, to own that you have needs, to find ways to get those needs met. Maybe because in childhood, they were neglected. Maybe somewhere else in your life, they were dismissed, denied, and your needs were not tolerated, beyond not tolerated. Like when we have needs for connection and belonging and all of the core things that are part of humans, and they're not met, especially in childhood, it is wounding. It leaves us more vulnerable. It leaves us hurt, and it affects people in different ways and different amounts. So we're going to start with celebration. I'm going to celebrate with you. I do this in my group. Everybody knows, like, yay! I want you to see me on camera. Yes, we are celebrating even minute steps. But awareness is the first part of the growth path that I talk about in the group. I'm working on developing that full teaching. I'd actually like to write a book on this whole topic, this path that we go through when we're choosing to not deny the reality of our messiness, our process. We're not going to deny the things that God wants to reveal in our lives. We're going to choose to move into a growth process. Because if we're denying it, we're blocking it, we're shoving it back, we're making it more of something that remains messy inside of us and like just icky. Like it starts to affect our physical being. It affects our health and long-term impacts when we deny the reality our experiences, of our needs, of our thoughts and our emotions, of our inability to be perfect, to get it all right as a Christian. There's a more beautiful way to go through by going through is what's happening that's more beautiful when you are able to start with awareness and move into these other layers in the growth path. So real quickly, I've talked about them before, but it's awareness, acknowledging, attending, activation, and assimilation. So these layers that are transformative over time, shaping us, developing like the core design of God within us that's unique, the different ways that God's attributes and his giftings show up in each of us. We're going to develop that. We're also going to develop this core place in our soul of like when we're connected to what's going on inside of us, for example, we bring a vulnerable, real presentation before God, and we meet God in a more powerful way there because we're bringing more to him for us to experience in that connection. When we're just saying, hey, I'm kind of struggling, like I kind of want you just to help me with this, we're actually limiting the flow of what God has available to us, what he wants to provide, because we're not even noticing or acknowledging that there's more. So we move from awareness into acknowledging. So now we start to have this awareness. We have an initial insight. We have that initial information, like I talked about in the groups. We focus on this information. But if it stays at the information level, it does not transform the heart, the soul, and how we experience life. So we want to move into then acknowledging this intentional step of noticing, yeah, actually this has been something that's been going on, and I'm acknowledging that there's these other elements that are part of it, that there may be other factors, and then we're going to move into attending to that. If it's, let's say, let me give you an example. You start to have an awareness that I'll do a personal example. So I had an awareness at one point that a lot of the language that I was using in certain situations was vague. It was really about me trying to get someone to do something, but I wasn't even giving them the information of how it was, like why I needed it or why it mattered or the difference that it could make. I was using just like a little bit of just like, hey, I need you to, or can you do this one thing? It was all in my mind, but it was actually more helpful in these situations for me to say, hey, when this isn't done over here, I'm finding it difficult to manage. My anxiety starts to go up, and I'm just wondering if you can help me with that by doing this one thing. So for me, that was important because I wanted to be able to own what was important for me to own, to be able to convey things more clearly, and to convey the information in such a way that it wasn't about like attacking the other person, but giving that person an opportunity to respond. That was an awareness. And then I started acknowledging, wow, this has actually been something that's been challenging for most of my life. And then I'm going to move into, why is it challenging? What's been hard for me? Okay, there's some fears there that person isn't going to respond, that they're going to reject me, that they're going to look at me like with the side eye and the condemning, critical, judgy looks and voices and tones. Acknowledging that those fears are there, bringing that before God, and then allowing him to attend to my spirit, bring about healing into some of the core areas that were keeping me from communicating the way that I did value, and I was also more effective. And then over time, when we have these experiences along the growth path, we move into what I call assimilation. And assimilation is that whole idea of all these things coming together and just being part of who we are and how we live. It's not just saying this information from God, oh yeah, this is the right thing. And like I can feel it in my body, this surge of energy and anxiety. I'm supposed to be responding in a more effective communication and I should be saying this and like, that ramps everything up in the nervous system. It ramps my brain up. It ramps my self-source model up instead of being spirit-sourced, instead of being receiving from God and allowing me to be in a place of, okay, I'm just acknowledging this has been challenging. There's some things related to it. I want to receive some healing so that now it's just natural. It's part of the overflow. It is the way that I operate more than not. That is the kind of growth I'm talking about. And that covers a lot of different topics. So we talk about all kinds of things about like needs and emotional regulation and boundaries and communication and relationships, being able to operate from a place where we see ourselves as equal individuals in the body of, like, God designed us as human beings, and who we are, not above other people and not below other people, so we can live with boldness and humility at the same time. So we can live with calm confidence. Also kind of working through grief. And in the group, we have what I call growth experiences, which we're fostering more and more in the group calls. And then I think I've been doing some Q&A times in the group, and I think I'm going to offer some additional opportunities where people can explore what is the area of awareness that's coming up right now. What is the Spirit already bringing to your attention or already stirring up, and it's been difficult to identify or to acknowledge? Oh yeah, the God's been kind of prompting me in a certain area and I've been trying to shove it away. I don't really want to notice that it's even there. What is that area? What does it look like? What could some of the next steps be? What are the challenges around it? And help you decide what the next steps forward are. But then in the group calls, these growth experiences, now that we know that some of that is part of what you're working on or identifying and wanting to step into, having space in the group with other people for a couple of purposes. One is to receive the relational nutrients, to connect with other people who are learning how to validate, to contain, to identify without, it's like identification is when we can acknowledge like that somebody else's circumstances, we can relate to it, and we share that we can relate to it, we identify with it, but it's very limited, 1 to 2 sentences most, because we're listening to that other person. So we're learning these different concepts, and then we're applying them and trying them out in the community. And then because of the interactions that we're having, or the practice sessions, if you will, there's that transformational exchange that is a growth experience. In the world of psychology, in the counseling world, there's a term called corrective emotional experiences. And I believe it's Bruce Ecker wrote, I think he's the founder of it. I could be wrong on that, but I know there's a lot. There's the books and articles. But the corrective emotional experience is really about this transformation that happens that does brain, like there's literally things that change in the brain, new neural pathways that are being developed, different exchanges that are happening there. But as a Christian, it's so powerful to have those experiences, not just for the brain, but because of how they impact our heart, how they impact our ability to take in the good things that God has for us directly with Him and through other people, the good that God sees, to take that in and to operate from that core. The group Cultivate Together is currently still open. I will be closing it. I thought I was going to do it here in August, but I've been very busy trying to set up the video and audio stuff recently, so I'm still working on a lot of different projects. As a result, you can take advantage of my busyness, because there's a couple of things that are like kind of hidden things that I'm going to tell you about. Number one, if you want to purchase a bound copy, a printed version of Unleash Heart and Soul Care Sheets, I haven't yet figured out how to add shipping costs. So if you order it, you'll get free shipping. And I think you can just go to joleneunderwood.com/unleash, and I think the purchase links are there. If not, email me. I'll make sure that you get the links. But you get free shipping until I can figure it out. I don't know how long that's going to be, but once I figure it out, that's going to change, so you get free shipping. Cultivate Together, there are still some pieces as far as automation. It's like, so we use a private community on Heartbeat, and then I use a place where I host all the videos for your core growth lesson, growth concepts, the growth model, and the growth path. And then we have growth lessons. Those are shorter topics. And you have bonus videos on like relaxation exercises, etc. All the video content is hosted in one place, and the community content is in another. And then you get the payments, and part of all this content creation stuff is trying to bring all that together to make a smooth experience for people. I'm still working through all that because I have to think through every scenario. when you're subscribing, when you're unsubscribing. I've been doing a lot of it manually, trying to build up those automations. So what I'm trying to say, is after I close, which probably will be sometime in September, when I close the doors, before I reopen again, the price is going to go up after I reopen. We're going to have some more things figured out. The people who are joining me here in the beginning, who've been with me since the beginning, who join now, are part of shaping how this group operates and making sure that you're getting enough content that helps you without it overwhelming you, but also that group engagement that's the most powerful, and then group coaching where you can ask me questions and I can actually work with you directly in a group. We also learn from one another. When someone asks a question in the group, and especially when we have these Q&As and these group calls, you can ask a question and then somebody else may have a similar question or it applies to them in a similar way. Oh man, I'm so glad you asked that question, because now that really helps me in the situation that I'm in. Another thing that we did this last year was we did a book club on the book Changes That Heal by Dr. Henry Cloud. That book talks about 4 character capacities, and that's something I learned at the Townsend Institute, where I got my master's for counseling. And there's just so much in that book. And the reason I chose to use that, and the reason I teach the growth model that Cloud and Townsend teach, is because they have a structure put together based on scripture and research, psychological research. So it's practical and spiritual, that highlight so many of the concepts that I believe God revealed in my own heart over time as I was pursuing healing and growth for my own life. I'm still am, but I mean, when I was in that really, really difficult place for so many years, there were just different things that I sensed the Spirit revealing to me, one thing here and one thing there. And what I noticed is similar things in different books. It was like, yeah, these are concepts that are spiritual. They are from God. These are ways that we can actually apply a principle. It gives me some the information that's helpful because it brings some clarity, some things to try out, etc. So anyway, so they have that structure, and that's a great place for me to start with, especially in this group. I don't know if that'll shift over time, but right now, using the book Changes That Heal, we had a book club discussions a couple times a month, I think, and talked about what we were reading and how it was applying in our life. So it took some of these growth principles and just went way deeper for anybody who wanted to go further with it and then start applying that in their life, which fostered more conversations and transformative growth experiences in the community, in the group. I would love to have you join if you believe that you are ready and you want to start growing in community. If you would value a much less expensive option to personal coaching or therapy. If you need therapy, this would be an adjunct to it. It is not therapy. If you need any of that, and if there's evidence that there's certain concerns coming up in the session, then I will have a private discussion. But I'm protective of the group. I want it to be a supportive place where we're learning new things, where we're learning how to be safe people, how to retrain our safety signals in our body, how to find safe people, how to start building safe connections. That's part of it. And getting past the head response into the heart experience. That has been a pattern for so many people's lives that it is challenging. You start to getting that information about why it matters, about what it could look like, but still the immediate reaction is still going to be what we've known, whatever that is. That immediate reaction is based off of what we've known in the past, which makes sense. It takes time to build those new neural pathways. It takes time to have those different experiences collectively come together, assimilate as a core shift inside of us. So we have opportunities. Sometimes I may say, hey, okay, let's just check in with that. Let me offer a reframe. I do that sometimes when we've already talked about a concept like this kind of idea of how we're really focused on external things, and now our nervous system is heightened because we've learned to pay attention to all the external things around us. And really it's talking about being safe or not safe, which disconnects us to what's going on inside of ourselves. And so our language becomes about what's going on outside versus the language about what's going on inside. And there are times when we actually need to shift into this language when it really matters. So sometimes when I'm hearing the pattern kind of continue and we've already had this conversation, I may say, hey, what about this? And could this reframe fit your situation? And sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, yes, okay, I did it again. That's okay. Lots of grace, lots of compassion. We're working through it. We're all in process. I'm still in process. I just want to join you as a trauma therapist, as a growth coach, as somebody who is passionate and loves, like it makes me feel more alive when I get to join other people and see God at work in your life to bring more of his unique design in you. Like God is so big, so amazing. None of us can be the display of all of who God is. We need each other. We all have strengths that we bring to the table. Your gifts matter. Your voice matters. You are valuable. But I want you to have the experience that helps you know that you know, deep in the core of your being, that is a place that you just operate from. You may still have those hesitations. You may still have some reservations that come up occasionally, but the whole way of living is different. That is something I've experienced. That the way I am today, people who knew me years ago, and especially in the midst of all the trauma, they see a different person. They know that things have shifted. Still, there's lots of areas where I'm, working on things or growing and developing and seeking God's guidance on. That's always going to continue. I have chosen to be a lifelong learner, a lifelong grower, person who is vested in allowing God to shape, and allowing myself to be in a place that I can receive what he has, whether it's courage and comfort, or even that conviction that doesn't feel so great, but it makes a difference. Because when I have that conviction, I notice, oh man, yeah, that's really not good. Lord, I want to turn away from that. That's what repentance is. I want to turn away from that. I want to do something different. That's something that I'm choosing, that's out of the overflow of God at work in me. I want it to be different. Not, oh my gosh, I did a bad thing. Now I am bad and I have to do the right thing. Two different ways of approaching a similar situation when that conviction comes. I'd love to see you in the group. You can go to the website above, joleneunderwood.com/cultivate together. Just to give you a heads up, there are some, like I said, those automations that I'm still working on that are not quite perfected. But when I do close the doors, the prices will be going up, and it's still going to be a huge value what you get in that community, because you're getting trauma-informed support, practical applications for these spiritual principles, and a place to learn and grow in community with other people. So please just let me know if you have any questions. Please reach out. If you don't hear back from me, either email me again or check your spam messages. Sometimes that happens too. Like, oh, I tried to reach it and there was no message. I'm like, I tried 3 times. I'm trying to get this information to you. So just check the spam messages sometimes. That is all I have for today. I'm going to be back here in 2 weeks. Tuesday the 19th, I think that is, in September at 1:30 Eastern time. It's a Tuesday. So I'm doing 2 a month, like I said, September, October, November, and then 1 in December. I would love to have you meet me, ask your questions, share your thoughts. I mean, we can have a discussion. Like if you want to share a thought, I'll put it here on the screen and we'll have a discussion about it. Again, that's all for today, and I look forward to connecting with you all real soon. Take care.